First time. It's my first time up here. Hey, good morning, Denver Community Church. How is everybody? Technical difficulties. So glad you're here this morning. I am up here. I'm John Gettings. I'm our executive pastor to introduce our teacher this morning, Cassie Adams.
Hello.
And you may be wondering why I'm introducing Cassie, because we know her. She was in our residency program the last year. She's taught many times from the platform. So I didn't really have to introduce her, except that I wanted to celebrate that she's just joined our staff team as the student and young adult ministry pastor. So we're very excited to have her on our team. Cassie brings so much energy, passion, joy, experience. It's truly going to be a gift to our students, to our families, to our young adults. So I'm so excited for her to be a part of our team. So one more time, let's just thank her for teaching this morning and let's welcome her into her new role.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. We're going to get up to so much shenanigans. I'm ready. All right, so today, I get to introduce us to our summer sermon series. And this summer, we're going to be going through what's called the Pentateuch. And Pentateuch means 5 scrolls. It's the first 5 books of our scriptures: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And we're going to go through it. And we're not going to go at the pace of Luke, though I know some of us wish summer would last that long. Instead, this is going to kind of be a flyby. We're going to kind of dip our toes into a couple of the narratives found in those scriptures. And so today we're going back to the very beginning. We're going back to page 1. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, and we're going to be looking at the creation narrative. Now, before I read this, I just want to acknowledge that this is a very familiar story to us, right? We were told it as kids. We hear it from time to time. It comes up again and again. It's like, oh yeah, 6 days, the animals and then the people. Like, we feel like we're familiar with this story, right? And so as I go into this, I'm about to read 34 verses, okay? And so I just want to encourage you to take a moment and just relax. Be present to your body, be present to the Spirit. And as we read these verses, I just want to encourage you to be present to them and see what's within them that might just speak to you. So, Genesis 1. You know what? I didn't bring my Bible up. That's awesome. I've memorized all 34 verses. Incredible. Wow. Lost in the sauce. All right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation with all kinds of trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning on the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth. And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 4th day. And God said, let the water teem with living creatures and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves about in it according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the 5th day. And God said, let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind. And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food. And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the 6th day. Thus, the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. And by the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. And then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. We made it. There's a lot there. Like, we could spend the whole summer in those 34 verses, I think. But today I just kind of want to invite us into this kind of question of, what's this about? What's this here for? Because when I was a little kid, I was sat down and a very colorful book was plopped in my lap, and we walked through all 6 days of creation, and I was told, this is how everything came to be that is around you. And as I got older, I was handed the story again, and it was like, you need to know this to guard yourself against the faithless, to guard yourself against the believers of old earth, or the science teacher that wants to corrupt you or push you astray. And it was handed to me as a scientific and historical, factual text. Yet, whether by intention or ignorance, something very important about this poem was omitted to me. And it's this. Our Genesis poem mirrors a much older poem, nearly step for step. It mirrors the poem Enuma Elish, which is a Babylonian creation epic. And each step of how creation is made follows each other. And so I kind of have to ask myself, okay, if these are mirroring each other, is it like a correction of the scientific take of the original? Like, what's happening here? And so I want us to look at this table real quick, because I want you to kind of visualize how in sync these two poems are. Okay, so for both of these stories, we find similarities. In Enuma Elish, the story begins with the divine spirit and cosmic matter. It begins with a primeval chaos, everything developing within a space of darkness where the waters reside. And in Genesis, we begin with the divine spirit who created this cosmic matter. And in the same way, it was a desolate waste. It was a dark space of waters. It's the same setting. And as the creation process happens and unfolds, they match one another. We're given the firmament, which is the heavens, and then we create the earth, which separates it, and then you begin to get your trees and animals, and eventually mankind. And interestingly enough, at the very end, both the Babylonian and the God of Israel rest. They really mirror each other. I think the copyright police would be all over this one. But it makes me wonder, because while Mesopotamia, which is the nation that Babylon resided in, was absolutely the leading scientific minds of their day, they did not consider Enuma Elish a scientific text. It was a mythological epic. It was a story about their gods intended to inspire. And as I began to look into this, I started to realize that that's not abnormal for a creation epic. In fact, scholars have looked throughout time and history, and they've looked at across continent. They've dug into these creation narratives, and again and again and again, they find that what they are is a reflection of a culture. The intention behind a creation epic is to tell the people who they are and where they're headed. It is about identity and trajectory, nearly every time. And so, if it's not a correction of their scientific or historical attempt to tell us about creation, but rather, instead, an opportunity to discover identity and trajectory of a people, we have to ask what's going on with these authors. Were the writers of the Genesis poem, as they began to think about who they were as a people and they chose to craft this poem, what was happening? What were they trying to speak to? And interestingly enough, when the Genesis poem was written, Israel was in exile in Babylon. They had been stripped of their national identity. And now it seems perhaps the poem is in fact a rebuttal. In the face of oppression and enslavement, the people of Israel took the time to say, I want to make clear who I am. I want our culture and our values to be clear because they are not the same as the people we are amongst. And so, in order to recognize this contrast in its fullest, because the stories do divert in their narratives, despite the creation steps being identical, I want to share with you the tale of Enuma Elish. So, in the beginning, there was chaos and darkness, and there was the waters of the sea, which were embodied by the goddess Tiamat. And there were the fresh waters, the sweet waters below, and they were personified by Apsu. And their waters intermingled and produced more gods. Now, these younger gods like to party, all right? These teens like to throw ragers, and as one does, when they start to go, you guys are just getting a little too loud, I can't stand it, they plotted to kill them. Yeah, that's how we handle rowdy teenagers, right? Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the younger gods discovered the plot in advance. And so they rose up against them, and one particular minor god crafted a sleeping spell that put Apsu into a permanent sleep. So naturally, Tiamat has to get revenge for her partner being slain, right? And so she's extremely powerful and crafty, and she creates an army of monsters to go against her children. And her children start to get a little nervous about this. They're like, I don't know if we can handle this. And so instead of coming together against her, they choose themselves a champion. And the champion's name is Marduk. And Marduk is strong and he's crafty and he's up to the challenge. And so Marduk comes to Tiamat and he cuts her in half. And he takes one half and makes the sky. And he takes the other half and he makes the earth. And then the celebrations begin because of their victory. And so they start to fill this earth with all sorts of vegetation and animals and life. And eventually he's like, we got to craft something to serve me, serve us. So they create humans as slaves to the gods. And he establishes Babylon as the crown jewel of civilization to reflect his dominance and his greatness. So Marduk's greatness and dominance reflects Babylon's greatness and dominance. And Marduk's power and sovereignty reflects Babylon's power and sovereignty. And the people of Babylon loved this tale. They told it every new year. They did it again and again to remind themselves that they were on top, that their God was on top. They were the greatest. Genesis doesn't really look like that, does it? It has a little bit of a different flavor. It is a little bit of a different pace. And so I want to look at this. We've seen the order in which creation takes place as basically identical, but when the energy and the actions of the divine are so very different, I think it's important to look at these differences. Because Babylon's epic reveals a lot about Babylon, and Genesis, the rebuttal there, reveals a lot about the people of Israel. So first, the entire value system of Babylon falls under dominance, elitism, and the subservience of man. And before I get into this, I want you to know my goal here isn't to belittle the Babylon narrative. It's an incredibly human philosophy to want your tale to reflect your people's greatness, your inness, that your posture is the right posture, that your positionality matters, okay? That's actually reflective of most creation narratives, okay? Genesis isn't an updated, cleaned up version of Enuma Elish. It is something radical, standing in contrast to it. The Babylon creation narrative is driven by violence and struggle. It's about vengeance. It's about positionality. It's about conquering. It's about being on top. Their whole story touts Babylon's dominance and the unveiling of the fragility of that position. That power. Any other god could come along and take it. The greater one exists. Well, with Genesis, it's just one God. Without struggle. Dominance being wholly unnecessary, for it's just them. And in peace, without struggle and without opposition, the God of Israel wills creation into existence. Beautiful and whole. It is good. The Encyclopedia of Creation Myths talks about the Genesis approach. It says, rather than high-paced, capricious, ritualistic, magic-filled drama depicted in the Enuma Elish and other Near Eastern creation myths, the reader of Genesis 1 is presented with a structured, majestic, logical prehistory. This is a God in total command, creating from thought. So while Babylon seems to be shouting, I beat you, I win, I'm on top, their oppressors almost seem to be reminding themselves that it is possible for chaos to be made to order without bloodshed. It is possible for there to be good in this world without struggle. And they're reminding themselves of this in their posture of oppression. Now, the second thing that Babylon is dealing with here that kind of shows up in this story is the sense of elitism, right? We are on top. We are the better people. There is someone less than me, actually. And this elitism isn't rare. I think that's where patriotism comes from. I think there's value in appreciating your people and who you are. Yet, this is their whole focus. And it's interesting because scholars have noted that the essence and use of the Enuma Elish poem leads readers to the implication that this was actually propaganda. Like the way it's written is very touting of like, remember Marduk, remember us, we're great. And you see this over and over again. There's a sense of propaganda. There's a flavor of propaganda to this work that they have. And it points to and uplifts and justifies Marduk's glory and Babylon's control and their supremacy over the Fertile Crescent region. Strangely, the Genesis narrative doesn't mention Israel once. And they don't read it during any of their festivals, not at the turn of the calendar. It almost seems like in this state of oppression, a humble clarity had struck that all people are equal and have right to this domain. It is for everyone. That the intention of their God was to create something beautiful and peaceable and whole without elevating any one people. Without uplifting and exalting any one group, he instead intended to give the care and to instead elevate all people as equal, that all would flourish amongst mankind. Which is the third one, mankind. In Enuma Elish, they decide we need someone to serve us, and so they throw the humans down to earth to serve them in their revelry and in their partying and in their experience here on the earth they've created through victory. And the story in Genesis doesn't look anything like that. It doesn't look anything like that. In the ancient cultures, kings and rulers would be said to have the image of the divine on them, that they would rule on behalf of the gods. That was a common imagery. That was a common phrasing. And so then you get to Genesis, and it says that all of mankind is made in the image of God, made in their likeness. And there's this declaration that all people are royalty and all people are deserving of dignity and respect and opportunity to care for and tend to this world that we're in. It's a completely different storyline where they choose somehow to omit themselves and instead include all. It's a different story. I spent some time reading Genesis for normal people as I prepared for today. And it's an incredibly tangible book written by the Bible for normal people. And they had this to say: the elevation of humans as a whole, male and female, to the level of divine image bearer is an ancient Israelite comment on human equality. Maybe being captive in a foreign country gave them a clearer sense of the value of human life. My heart kind of ached as I did this research, because I could kind of see it and feel it. A group of captives, enslaved and oppressed, sat down together and penned a rebuttal to the narrative that they were less. And instead of choosing to do that by lifting themselves up, they spoke of a new way, a world created without struggle for peace, goodness, beauty, delight. A world where all are equal and dignified and worthy. That is the story they told themselves in the midst of their struggle. And I think we have an opportunity as we move through this life to choose the narrative that we're going to live according to. Like, what is my identity and trajectory? Where am I headed? Am I going to align with the group that wants to always strive after being on top and making sure they're okay and they're good and they're comfortable? Or do I want to align instead with a trajectory and an identity that actually is inclusive of all around me, even when that's uncomfortable and even when that's scary and even when that kind of feels wrong? Which narrative am I going to embody? When it said, in the beginning God created, that phrasing, got created, is actually probably more accurately stated, God began creating. The phrasing assumes a continuity. And so in the beginning, God created. And he brought order to chaos, and he brought dignity to all. And God continued to create. And he approached a group of enslaved exiles far from home, and he brought order to their chaos. And they painted dignity into their oppressed children. And still today, God continues this creation. And she brings order to our chaos. And she sings dignity over every soul we encounter. And we have an opportunity as those who have committed to participate in the kingdom of this God to also do that creative work, to bring order to the chaos in the world around us, and to speak dignity and life over every single person. And I know we're in an era of great tension because there's a lot of voices that want to say that some are less, some don't belong, some aren't good enough. And it's heavy and it's hard. And we are called to be image bearers, to be creators who stand against that. And recognize a creation for all. It's Pride Month, as Caleb mentioned, and as he said, our worship team today, our tech crew, and it's going to be our Eucharist. Everyone serving you Eucharist today is part of the LGBTQ plus community here at Denver Community Church. And I don't think I'm alone when I say that we have been so blessed by this community, that you have spoken welcome over us, that you have spoken dignity over us, that you've looked us in the eyes and said, God crafted you beautiful and good and in God's image. That from man to woman, the full image of God is displayed. And we thank you for that you have been participating in the creative work of God. That each time you affirm a brother, a sister, or a sibling, you participate in the ongoing act of creation. We're going to be moving into a time of Eucharist. And may everyone in this space find that they are welcome. My brothers, my sisters, my siblings, you are royalty. And you are invited to a table that has been set with you in mind. As we move into this time, all of our bread is gluten-free. The stemmed glass is wine, and the short cup is juice. I'm going to have you come down the center and the outside and exit up the diagonals. And I'm going to read from Matthew before we begin. While they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take and eat. This is my body." And then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink from it, all of you. This is the blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins."